Have faith. Let it begin. Hello, everyone. This is Angel, and welcome to another episode. We want to thank GABBIE Santana for the use of our theme song, Tested. It is written, performed, and produced all by GABBIE Santana. She is 14 years of age, excuse me. Go visit her YouTube channel, GABBIE Santana. She is amazing. Thank you, GABBIE, for your support. We appreciate the song, and we appreciate you and your efforts to make the show successful. I hope everybody's having an amazing week. And as I drive to work this morning, I'm seeing cop car after cop car. And at first thing I said to myself, well, wait a minute. I don't think I've ever talked about this topic ever. So let's talk about it. Speeding tickets. Being pulled over by the police. Have you ever been pulled over by the police? Have you ever encountered a police officer that was really cool or maybe really nasty? I remember myself, I have pretty much had a clean record. When I say pretty much, I have had a ticket that was then overturned, but I never really received ever a speeding ticket. I've never actually, received a ticket. I have been pulled over for reasons I can't even remember. I can remember, I can't begin to believe why. But ultimately, we all have encountered, some of us, I'm sure, have encountered being pulled over by the police. The question is, what type of police officer has pulled you over? Were they a quote-unquote good cop? Were they a grumpy cop? Were they a mean cop? Were they a bad cop? And I don't mean to say cop because I know that most police officers do not like to be called cops. So I'll refrain from that. We have police officers in my family, so I have to definitely show the respect. But, one of the things that I've noticed is that, on the highway, there are so many people out there speeding. Oh my goodness. The fast lane doesn't even exist anymore. Not even the slow lane. Every lane is a fast lane. Every lane is like the Fast and the Furious, especially in the snow and in hard rain. There's no fear. It's amazing. People will drive with no fear. They will literally put the pedal to the metal and make it happen, especially if they're running late for work. We covered late for work once, so take a look at that episode. But I just recall one time being in Providence, Rhode Island, driving to get my hair cut. I was not in a rush. It was a haircut. And I was driving along, and one of the things I discovered was that there was a lot of construction going on. And as I was driving, I said, well, I know that where I lived, anytime you have construction, you want to slow down. So there was no signs as to what the speed limit is in Providence for construction. And there are certain construction sites that'll tell you reduce speed, and it gives you the speed limit. So I'm driving along. I reduced my speed by 10. I went from 65 to 55. And I was getting closer and closer to my exit, so I started to kind of slow down a little bit. And next thing you know, I got pulled over. I got pulled over by the police. And I'm saying to myself, what did I do? Did I miss something? And the police officer comes over. Now, let me quickly stop, because I got to set the tone here for a second. When I went to Providence, Rhode Island, it was temporary at the time. I wasn't sure if I was going to stay there. So I had been in Rhode Island for about 3 months. And my initial thought was, I wasn't sure whether or not I was going to stay there. So I never changed my license. And they said that I had the opportunity to have a work license. So they gave me notification that I was temporarily in the state up to 6 months. Just so you understand that. Because it holds important to the story. Okay, back to the story. So the police officer pulls up, comes up to my window. Now in Rhode Island, they don't come up to you on the driver's side. They come to you on the passenger side. I didn't know that. So I'm waiting for the driver. I'm looking, at my left, side mirror, and he's not there. All of a sudden I get a knock at the window to my right, and I literally jump out of my seat, nervous. So, of course, that automatically makes the the officer probably wonder, why is this guy so nervous? And I said, oh, how you doing, officer? I'm sorry, I didn't expect you to come in on the right side. I said, that's pretty cool that you guys do that. You know, you don't want to get, God forbid, you get hit by a vehicle or anything. He's like, yeah, that's the purpose, and blah, 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 blah. So he says, can I have your license and registration? And I'm like, oh, sure, you know, no problem. And I start taking the information out, and I said, is it okay if I ask, you know, why I was pulled over? And he said, is it okay if I look at your information first? And I said, ooh, this is not going to be good. So he looks at my information and he says to me, is there a reason why you're in the state of Rhode Island? And I said, yeah, I'm here on a, you know, like a work, I'm here for work. I'm here temporarily for a little while. And, you know, and he says, well, where do you work? And, you know, I told him, and he goes, well, that's about, you know, 25 minutes away. What are you doing out this way? And I said, well, I'm getting a haircut. Somebody gave me a reference. They said they do really good haircuts over here. And he goes, okay, do you know where that is? And I'm like, yeah. I told him, and he goes, well, he goes, I'm not sure I understand why you're, you know, living in Rhode Island temporarily. And I thought it was kind of odd that he would ask those questions. But you know what? At the end of the day, you know, this was right after 9/11. So I want to say that, you know, I guess in a way I can understand. He wasn't being mean. He did smile as he asked questions and stuff. So he then proceeded to tell me why he pulled me over. He said that it was a construction site, and the speed limit for this construction site is 40 miles per hour. And I said, really? I says, oh my goodness. I said, I was doing like 53, 54. He goes, yeah, I had you clocked at 53. He goes, you're right. He goes, so you knew that you were speeding? I said, no, I knew my speed limit, but I did not know that the speed limit was 40 miles an hour. There were no signs. He goes, oh, there's two of them. I go, really? I said, well, I didn't see them. He goes, apparently not. He walks back. He goes, I'll be back. He walks back and he issues me a ticket. Now, I couldn't believe this, but the tickets are doubled. So it's a double fine for in a construction site. So I was doing 13 miles technically over the speed limit, which basically put me in a status of having points on my license and a suspension. I freaked out, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is not good. I didn't even get my haircut. I got off the exit, and I decided to loop around and get back on the highway and jump on the highway to see if I can see these signs. And so I get back on the highway, and would you know it, there were no signs that said 40 miles per hour. It only said reduce speed. Now, again, this is during the time when there were no camera phones. So, this is actually around the text message era. So I literally got back on, I went past the site, drove off the exit, went to the nearby place, got a disposable camera, got back on the highway, looped around again, and as I was getting to the construction site, I pulled over and I started taking pictures. And the police officer shows up again, right behind me, gets out of his car and says, "What are you doing?" I says, "I'm taking pictures of the site because there's no signs that say 40 miles per hour. He looks at me and he says, "You cannot be pulled over on a construction site." He goes, "It is considered a violation." He issued me another ticket. Yes, another ticket for being pulled over on a construction site. Now I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my license. What am I going to do? And I'll be honest, I lost my temper a little bit. I said, listen, you told me there were signs here. There are no signs here. I'm just trying to protect myself. I says, I admit to doing 53. I says, but there's no signs. How do you know what the speed limit is? He says, that's not my problem. And now I'm thinking, oh, we went from good cop to bad cop. So, and again, I said cop, and I meant to say police officer. Sorry. This is not a knock on any police officer, please. When I say, I want to stop real quick, I respect the law. I respect authority. I have never had any issues with any police officer, but I just felt at that moment, you know, there's a right and there's a wrong. And I felt that I had a case. So again, this is not a political statement. This is just a story about me getting pulled over because it's really the only one that I can think of that I thought was interesting. So fast forward, I go to court. Now, when I was getting ready to go to court, I had called my parents and I said, I got a ticket. I don't know what to do. My sister, who's going to love me for saying this, who's notorious for getting many speeding tickets, she's the one that called me and she says, listen, you've never had a ticket before. You can plead guilty with the use of your good driving record. And I said, but I don't want to plead guilty. She says, well, you kind of have to if you're going to use your use of your good driving record. I said, well, I don't want to do that. So she said, well, then you're going to get a ticket. You're going to lose your license. So I called up. I get a copy of my good driving record because I never had a ticket. And this story brings back so much memories. And so I get it faxed over to my job. And my boss says you can't get it faxed. You got to get it certified mail because anybody can do this and that. So I walked into court with all that information. I was nervous. They called me up and I walk up and the judge says, you're being charged with 2 tickets. You know, one for speeding in a construction site. How do you plead? And I said, Your Honor, can I ask you a question before I make a plea? He says, of course. Now we have a good judge. I says, I'm very, very confused because of what had occurred. I was wondering if you can give me give me an opportunity to say an explanation. He goes, well, if you think you're not guilty, son, then you can plead not guilty with an explanation. So I said, wow. Okay, let's do that. He goes, okay, let's read the counts. So he read the second one. He goes, you're being, given a tickets for pulling over in a construction site. Basically, it's a hazard. It's unsafe. So I said, well, I plead not guilty to both with an explanation. So I explained to the judge what happened. The judge asks if the officer was present, and the officer was. They look at the case, and he says to the officer, he goes, all right, so you issued him a ticket. He made it a point to loop around, double check to see if the signs were there. He noticed that the signs were not there. He provided pictures. He goes, how is somebody from out of state supposed to know what the speed limit is? He goes, he admitted to doing 53, but if he didn't know that it was 40 miles per hour, to him, he reduced speeds from 65 to 53. This is a person that clearly was trying to slow down in construction. The officer says, well, it's not my problem. He actually said that to the judge. The judge got really upset and immediately dismissed both of my tickets, my case, and asked to speak to the police officer in his chambers. I was like the 5th person they called, and I don't know what happened, but I walked out, and all I had to do was pay a court fee of $15. So, that's my story. I know I kind of went a little bit over today, but, I don't want it to come across like I'm bashing a police officer. Please don't think that. I have the utmost respect for police officers. I really do. But the purpose of my story is this. You really have to know what your surroundings are. You really have to understand how the law works and always try to own up to whatever it is that's happening. But more importantly, be aware of what the surroundings are. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to double check things because sometimes people make mistakes. Do I think the officer could have probably let me off with a warning? Definitely. But he was right. I was speeding. I was speeding in a construction zone. The only difference was he and I both didn't realize until we checked that there were no signs available to prove that. I knew there were no signs. He didn't maybe double check or maybe he assumed there was a sign. Long story short, about 3 weeks later when I got another haircut and I started going down that road, guess what was on the construction site? New signs. and the sign said 45 miles per hour. Not 40, 45. So, always be aware of your surroundings. Do not be intimidated by anyone, because when you're right and you're rude, then you're wrong. Remember that each and every day as you go on to your daily routine. And send me any of your stories about being pulled over. Good ones, bad ones, funny ones. Love to share them on the show. For Have Faith, Let It Begin. My name is Angel. May God bless you, and may all your days be ticket free and don't speed at all. All right? God bless. Have a good day, guys. Have faith. Let it begin. Now watch. I hope police officers do not hate me for this episode. Oh boy, this wouldn't be good.
Don't you see that your faith is coming?